What you're going to see here in a second, coming from up in this area, is the victim, all right? And then as a short time later, you'll see one suspect and then a second suspect. Really want people that are driving down the street at this time, that something, jogs their memory. There comes the suspect now running toward the victim. Here comes suspect number 2, who acted as the lookout. His hands are out, he's being told something.
Still developing story tonight. A 24-year-old married man and soon-to-be father was gunned down early Tuesday while walking not far from his home.
And IMPD has set up this mobile command post near the scene of this crime to track down the men that they believe are responsible for this murder. And
today we are going back to 2014 to Indianapolis, the most populated city in the state of Indiana. Busy and bustling all the time and home to almost 900,000 people, 2 of which were 24-year-old Nathan Benjamin Trupzzano and his wife Jennifer. Nathan grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania before settling in Indianapolis. He graduated from Ball State University with a degree in classical studies and worked as a computer programmer at Ivy Tech Community College. Friends and family describe him as steady, faithful, and quick to help anyone who needed it. He had recently married his wife Jennifer. She was pregnant with their first child, a daughter, due within weeks. His morning walk was a small, private ritual, a routine so regular that anyone watching him for even a few days would know exactly where he'd be and when. Early morning, April 1st, 2014. Nathan sets out along West 16th Street, passing a strip club parking lot and a tire shop on the city's west side. He isn't alone. Somewhere along that stretch, in the dark, someone is watching him. A gunshot breaks the quiet. A short time later, a passerby spots him. Nathan is down on the ground, his shirt open, struggling to breathe. There's surprisingly little blood, just a small wound to his abdomen, but he's in shock. The passerby calls for an ambulance, then kneels beside him, talking to him, trying to keep him calm and conscious while help is on the way. Paramedics arrive within minutes and rush him to Eskenazi Hospital. Doctors work to save him, but the internal damage is too severe. Hours later, Nathan Trupzzano is pronounced dead. He never learns whether his child will be a boy or a girl. He never gets to hold her. The tire shop and the first lead. After the shooting, detectives had almost nothing to work with. No suspect, no weapon, no clear motive beyond what looked like a robbery. What they did have was a tire shop sitting on the corner near where Nathan was found. The owner had installed CCTV cameras there years earlier, mainly to protect his own lot and inventory after a string of break-ins. He'd never expected the cameras to end up part of a murder investigation, but they happened to cover the stretch of street Nathan walked down that morning. Detectives have almost nothing to go on. No suspect, no weapon, no clear motive beyond a robbery gone wrong. What they do have is a scattering of surveillance cameras near the scene, covering the parking lot and the street outside the tire shop. They pull the footage. It's grainy, but it's enough. A figure appears on camera, camouflage pants, a hooded sweatshirt, a dark stocking cap, moving toward Nathan's route in the minutes before the shooting. The footage seems to show the same figure stalking him before closing the distance. Investigators run down every lead the footage gives them: the clothing, the build, the direction the figure came from and fled to.
What you're going to see here in a second, coming from up in this area, is the victim, all right? And then as a short time later, you'll see one suspect and then a second suspect. Really want people that are driving down the street at this time, that something, jogs their memory. There comes the suspect now running toward the victim. Here comes suspect number 2, who acted as the lookout. His hands are out, he's being told something. They'll chat around this side by the street over here, closer to the right side of the screen, and at some point, the victim and suspect number 1 will go over to this general area where they'll go off screen. That's when a struggle will occur and the victim is shot. Second suspect is acting as a lookout. Will take off running while they're struggling northeast towards 16th Street and then north across 16th Street into the neighborhood. Suspect number 1 and the shooter runs off west onto 16th Street.
That kind of violence wasn't rare for this part of Indianapolis at the time. The West Side had been dealing with a stretch of shootings and gunfire that spring. Nothing unusual enough on its own to draw much notice. Investigators later tied a lot of it back to one source: a burglary at a local firearms dealer that had put dozens of stolen guns onto the street. Those guns kept turning up in unrelated incidents, arguments, robberies, shootings, including the one that left a young man wounded in the neck days before Nathan was killed. Around the same time, word of what happened reached Nathan's family. The news landed as pure disbelief. Jennifer, weeks from giving birth, went from waiting for Nathan to come home from an ordinary walk to sitting in a hospital corridor. For everyone close to him, it didn't add up. Nathan wasn't reckless, wasn't in a dangerous situation, was just doing the same walk he did every morning. There was no explanation yet, only shock and a lot of unanswered phone calls.
He was gonna be a dad. I mean, he was excited and happy, and
he was gonna be a great dad.
It seemed like he was moving fast through life, like even, three of us are older than him, and he was, moving faster than all of us pretty much. I don't know, just kind of devastated all around, but I know he'll still be around, not physically, but some ways he'll listen to me still when I need him, and I guess that's all I can really ask for.
He had his hands up.
Still developing story tonight. A 24-year-old married man and soon-to-be father was gunned down early Tuesday while walking not far from his home.
And IMPD has set up this mobile command post near the scene of this crime to track down the men that they believe are responsible for this murder. And tonight, family and friends are trying to deal with this senseless crime. This surveillance video shows what people across the nation now know about 24-year-old Nathan Trupzzano. But to think that he was simply a victim of a senseless crime would be wrong, say his family and friends.
He just seemed like one of those guys that I wanted to be like as I was going through college.
Brandon Stanley, a senior at Ball State, met Nathan 4 years ago at the university. The two men reconnected as members of Holy Rosary Church. Brandon describes his friend as having a deep faith.
When the shooting happened, he was out praying a morning rosary. So he was out doing his morning routine where he would go jogging or go walking and pray at the same time.
And then this happened. Black and white surveillance video of the last moments of his life.
It doesn't make sense, and that's why I think the community is surrounding us, because it's not someone that was out doing drugs or someone that was out being bad or mischievous. He was just living his life.
And while Nathan Trupzzano's life ended tragically, his friends and family say the real tragedy is to let his death define him.
As detectives kept working the footage, they turned up something unconnected on the surface. An older clip from a different case, days earlier. It showed a shootout blocks away between two young men. One of them was hit and went down, shot in the neck by the other, a young man named Eric Douglas. The wounded man got up and disappeared from frame. On its own, that footage had nothing to do with Nathan. But something about the build and the clothing of the wounded man stuck with the detectives reviewing it. A loose thread they couldn't explain yet, but one they held onto anyway. And within hours, it points them somewhere none of them expected. A hospital bed, just blocks away. A 16-year-old boy had walked into that same hospital hours after the murder, being treated for a gunshot wound to the neck. His clothing matches the footage almost exactly. Camo pants, a gray hoodie, a black stocking cap. His name is Simeon Adams. As detectives dig further, a second name surfaces. A friend and accomplice, also 16, named Martez McGraw, known on the street as Duh. A witness tells police that Adams had confessed to the shooting directly, claiming Nathan tried to tussle with him, so he fired. Ballistics tie a shell casing from the scene to another shooting days earlier, one where Adams was also a suspect. Piece by piece, the case comes together. Both teenagers are taken into custody. As the case moves forward, reporters and investigators dig into Adams' background, and it paints a difficult picture. He lost his mother when he was just over a year old. His father later served time in prison. Adams grew up largely without steady guidance, with a juvenile record that included arrests for battery and theft, trouble staying in school, and a car theft charge just months before the murder. He had reportedly violated probation multiple times in the lead-up to that April morning. McGraw, his accomplice, was cut from a similar mold. Another 16-year-old pulled into the same current of guns and violence moving through the neighborhood that spring. tied to a recent burglary that had put dozens of stolen firearms on the street. Neither boy was new to the system. Now both faced the most serious charge either of them would ever see.
Well, we begin tonight with the story behind the teenager charged with the brutal and senseless murder of Nathan Trupzzano.
That 16-year-old Simeon Adams goes to court tomorrow morning facing serious violent felonies in 2 separate shootings.
2 days before the murder, Adams allegedly got into an altercation with a man at the Steak and Lemonade shop at 29th and MLK. It began when Adams bumped into the victim, then glared at him, and then shot him.
My heart, my prayers went out to him, because it could have been me. It could have been 2 murders. I mean, I still feel sad about it. I'm just glad he's off the streets.
Over the past 6 years, juvenile prosecutors charged Adams with 29 serious and violent crimes for which he only spent 50 days behind bars.
Mr. Adams has been charged with murder, felony murder, attempt robbery, and carrying a handgun without a license. We have provided to you copies of the probable cause affidavit on both those matters. I'll not go into any great detail in terms of the allegations, but in a nutshell, as you're well aware, there was a surveillance video from a nearby business relating to this particular crime. And in the video, one of the suspects had relatively distinctive clothing wearing. It is also set forth that statements have been given by witnesses implicating Mr. Adams in the shooting.
He was known to the street element, and as in some cases, as we talk about those cases with young people who find themselves in harm's way, you often become the victim of the very crimes you commit. We're clear about the message we're sending. We're going to make the city safe. We're going to continue to call on the citizens and the media to help us bring back information, and we're going to thank the prosecutor and his fine team for making sure these cases are brought to justice.
3 weeks after Nathan's death, Jennifer gives birth to their daughter. They name her Cecilia. It should have been one of the happiest days of Nathan's life. Instead, Jennifer becomes a new mother and a widow within the same few weeks. Raising the child Nathan never got the chance to meet. Adams is charged as an adult with murder, felony murder, attempted robbery, and unlawfully carrying a handgun. What draws almost as much public anger as the crime itself is his conduct in custody. Cameras catch him smiling and laughing with another inmate as he's led down a courtroom hallway for a hearing, an image that spreads quickly through local news. In June 2015, Adams pleads guilty. He's sentenced to 55 years in the Indiana Department of Correction, with the possibility of release after half that time for good behavior under the law as it stood at the time of the murder. He later receives an additional 12 years, served consecutively for the earlier shooting tied to the same investigation. Nathan's family is split on the outcome. His sister Shane says publicly that she feels the system failed them, believing Adams should have faced life in prison. Prosecutors explain that at 16, a life sentence was legally out of reach. At the sentencing hearing, Jennifer takes the stand. She describes a Nathan-sized hole in her life, panic attacks, insomnia, a fear of leaving her own home. And then she says something few could imagine saying to the man who killed her husband, that she forgives him, not because he deserves it, but because it's the kind of man Nathan was. Nathan's mother, Cheryl, offers a very different reaction, telling reporters she does not believe justice was served at all. In the days following the murder, donations poured in for Jennifer and the baby she was carrying.
Courtroom, a handful of family members showed up today to hear the formal murder and other felony charges against Adams.
I'm a cousin, and he is innocent until proven guilty.
And though police initially identified a second suspect in surveillance video from the murder scene on West 16th Street,
second suspect is acting as a lookout.
Only Adams faces charges. Prosecutors know who the second person is, another 16-year-old. They've declined to file charges against him.
And because they want to use him at the trial of Mr. Adams.
Criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Jack Crawford says even though the second teen was feet away when the murder took place, prosecutors likely have decided to use him as a key witness rather than charge him with a crime.
And so clearly he knows who he's talking about, and he was 9 feet away. So if he's telling the truth, mind you, if he's telling the truth, then he's a very important witness for the state.
The teenager who admitted to killing an Indianapolis newlywed and father-to-be will spend decades in prison. A Marion County judge sentenced 18-year-old Simeon Adams to 55 years for killing Nathan Trupzzano.
more than $130,000 in the first weeks alone, according to news reports at the time. That outpouring becomes something lasting. Jennifer and Nathan's siblings established the Nathan Trupzzano Memorial Foundation, built to support children who've lost a parent, the same loss Cecilia now carries. Each year, the foundation holds Nate Walk, a fundraising walk held in Indiana and in Nathan's hometown of Pittsburgh, drawing hundreds of people who never knew him but know his story. Jennifer also became a public advocate, backing a piece of Indiana legislation informally known as the Nathan Trupzzano Bill, aimed at addressing gaps in the juvenile justice system. In interviews over the years since, Jennifer has spoken about rebuilding a life she never planned for, describing more good days than bad now, laughing and singing in the car with Cecilia, watching her grow into a girl who keeps us laughing all the time. Cecilia has grown up knowing her father only through photographs, stories, and the foundation built in his name. Family members have described her calling out for "da-da" at the sight of his picture as a toddler, a small, aching detail that captures everything this case took from a family.
This is Miss Cecilia Marie Trupzzano. She's about to turn 1. It's completely changed my world. I mean, April 1st did in one way, and having a daughter did in another. I think any mom could say that. You are now, you have someone dependent on you. You can't just be selfish. You have to give your life to them. And I didn't know how much, and I still don't know how much I have to give sometimes. I feel like my energy is not always there, and my heart's still broken, but I give her so much love, and as much love as I can.
Simeon Adams remains incarcerated at the Miami Correctional Facility in Indiana. Barring early release, he isn't eligible to walk free until sometime around 2055. Nathan Trupzzano never got the chance to raise his daughter, but every year on a walking trail in Indiana or in the streets of Pittsburgh, people still lace up their shoes and walk in his name, turning a routine that once made him a target into something that now keeps his memory alive.